Paige Winter, Senior Digital Marketing Account Manager with Google, and Candace Davenport, Membership Development Online Marketing Manager for AARP. Excuse me. And we want to talk a little bit.
Oh, yeah. That's
Okay. Musical chairs. We're going to talk a little bit about how search is being changed based on the devices and recognizing gestures and voice, and how these challenges are being overcome through search marketing. So I'm going to open it up to you guys with how has the proliferation of connected devices changed the landscape in search?
I can go.
Yeah.
I'd say that regardless of the device or the manner in which that the search was conducted, whether it be through voice command or manually typing in your query, search is still the best vehicle for understanding consumer intent at the exact right moment. I challenge anyone to name another marketing channel where you can react to your consumer, when it is necessary at that most important moment. I'd say device proliferation has largely made it possible for more searches to happen, and as marketers, that's great news for us. We can reach our consumers at more points of relevance. I guess it really, the proliferation of devices has allowed us or enabled us to do our job better, to get in front of our consumers when it is important, when they don't even know that it is important, across multiple screens and multiple channels. It's probably, the right question to be asking yourself is not which screen or which device do I want to focus my marketing efforts against, but how do I create an integrated strategy across all screens in a way that is helpful to the user and not obtrusive.
Yeah, so I'm going to be really honest as the brand marketer, it's hard. It's really, really hard, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. And I think, as somebody who works on the brand side, I spend probably, there's a quote, you spend 95% of your time thinking about the problem, identifying what the problem is, and 5% of the time figuring out the solution. And there are a lot of people in this room who are figuring out the solution, and I'm not one of them. So I'm looking to you all for the solution. But I can tell you that it's been hard, and there are a lot of problems that come up because of it, but I think it's a good thing because it's not just looking at how we're doing our marketing. At AARP, we're actually looking at how our marketing groups are structured. I think a really great example of this is looking at brand marketing versus direct response. I work from the membership acquisition group, so my job is very direct response driven, acquiring new members and retaining members as well. But you think about, I think there's a crazy statistic that in 2012, I think 60% of marketers are going to be spending their money on brand advertising online versus direct response, which is a pretty big shift. And when you think about that, if brand marketing teams and direct response marketing teams aren't talking, you're going to have a real problem with that customer experience because a customer isn't going to be able to distinguish between this is a brand placement versus this is direct response. So it's really sort of opened Pandora's box about how we're looking at even structure of our organization and our teams.
I would say as a search engine marketing agency, looking at this from a very practical standpoint, each of the individual devices are looked at individually, and they all have to, we'd like them all to be combined. But at this point right now, all the devices have to stand on their own from an ROI basis. And what we're all hoping for in the industry, and maybe Google, you can give us more insight on this, is when we're going to be able to combine the tracking across devices. So if somebody signed in to Google on their multiple devices, on their phone, their desktop, their tablet, that we're going to be able to track the path, the click stream across all of those devices. And that will really enable us to do a more integrated media buy. But at this point right now, really everything kind of has to stand on its own.
How does the marketing value picture differ between devices? So if you're looking at consumers that are coming from these different channels, what's the value of each one? Have you found, like, as these devices are growing, are you finding that, you know, as these trends are growing, that these emerging consumers are gravitating closer to mobile, or do you find that the value picture is still heavily on desktop?
We find that day parting plays a big part of this. So we find that, you know, there have been a lot of studies that show that desktop usage early in the day is much higher, and tablet usage and mobile usage starts to spike at night. And so that has, you know, that's helped us create strategies of pricing and day parting in order to take advantage of that. But we do find that the activity on desktop and tablet, what we found is very, very similar. What we found on the smartphones in particular is that the activity is really different. Most of our clients at our agency are involved in e-commerce in some way, and the conversion rates on the smartphones themselves is just a fraction of what we're seeing on desktop and tablets. The good news is that the CPCs are really low on those devices, but the conversion is way off. So what we're trying to understand is what is it that people specifically are looking for on their smartphone from an e-commerce perspective in order for it to make sense to advertise on that device.
I think one thing at Google that we found is kind of a new metric that we're paying really close attention to with mobile devices is the click-to-call, or the call-through rate. It is true that you know, big ticket item conversions on your mobile device are not as common. They do happen. People can purchase plane tickets and cars and make reservations at resorts on their mobile phone, and they do that. But very often they are looking for information with local intent and with intent to call the advertiser. I work specifically in the telecom space, and we've seen tremendous success with the click-to-call metric and that value proposition, just because a lot of the telecoms are able to sell. They have a better sell-through on a phone call. They can get a larger basket size. They can upsell, cross-sell. We've had several clients that have brought their call centers from offshore back onshore and have expanded those call centers because the click-through, the call-throughs are so successful, and they've just been seeing tremendous volume there. So it's not, you know, the original metrics still need to be looked at, and I think that Susie's right. Everything at this point in time still needs to stand on its own from an ROI perspective, but it's important to look at ROI not just on the online conversion or not just on the number of new users that sign up for your product or service, but looking at those things that are kind of spillover effects, like calls to your call center.
So are there key metrics to measure the performance across devices, or are we not there yet?
I don't know if we're there yet. I'm not there yet. I think, you know, metrics are great so long as you know what they mean and what you can do from them. To me, a metric is only as important as the action that it's going to drive. So I think that, you know, there has to be a lot of thought around. I think this multi-channel, multi-device attribution, I think, is going to be a hot topic that we're talking about during this session, and it's something that's going on for a while now. So, you know, to me, a metric is only as important as the action that it can drive. There certainly will be new metrics, but how that fits in with allocation models, I think, is still TBD.
I think I agree with that. I would say the only metric that is different, particularly to smartphones, would be looking at which page the person's navigating to and how that differs across the different devices, because we know store locator and you know, there's different points of it. People use a smartphone for different reasons that they would normally use for desktop and tablet.
Yep. I think the metrics are probably already there. We know what we want, the information that we want to gather from our advertising channels. And for every advertiser, that's very different. I mean, some conversions are as simple as a download of a white paper, and some are much more complex and involve, you know, adding things to a shopping cart. it's really going to be a challenge for all of us, especially I think at Google, to figure out how to follow, as Susie mentioned, that user across their devices and look at attribution across devices and not just look at last click attribution. That's something that a lot of us are still stuck in because it's easy to identify that and easy to react to it. But it's not necessarily the most telling, and we may not be reacting in the right way. I'd say it's probably going to become more and more common for your attribution models to be parsed out based on the entire funnel. Maybe brand will actually get zero attribution at some point. It is a challenge, and it's still a work in progress, and some companies and some agencies are probably doing it in a more sophisticated way than others, but I'm hopeful that last click will not continue to be the kind of standard attribution model.
Yeah, I think that just to your point about attribution, we switched this year, and we are, we give our clients a choice of different attributions, and a lot of them just don't attribute anything to the trademark. But when it comes across devices and you don't have the click stream across those devices, that's where the industry is still kind of lagging in that area. The only other point I just wanted to make about metrics is that what we've seen steadily for the past, 3 or 4 years is an uptick in conversion rates, year over year, quarter over quarter, month over month. Conversion rates across all devices continues to go up, except for smartphones, which is, like I said before, is like a fraction of what we're seeing on the others. And because of that, even if people are starting their searches on one device and finishing on another device, with the increase in conversion rate, we're still able to put ourselves out there more than we would have normally been able to.
And it'll be interesting if we, I mean Google, and this is a question that I would love to know, and I honestly have no idea, but I think a big question we're facing is, are we going to link up user profiles, which would be very cool for marketers, but is a tricky challenge from both a technical and privacy standpoint. But if that's possible, then we can probably track purchases that start from one device, maybe get carried forward in another, and finally get completed on another, and follow that and attribute a certain amount of success to each of those devices as being a contributing factor in the final purchase.
I actually have a question for Google Page. Do remarketing ads currently, if you're logged in on all your devices, do they travel from device to device?
So that depends on your remarketing pixel. Right now, I think 3 out of 4 websites are not mobilely optimized. So if there is a remarketing or retargeting pixel on your confirmation page, and that confirmation page is the same across devices, then technically, yes, you could be hitting a user across devices, I believe. But if you don't, if you have a mobile optimized site, then you're probably just hitting them on that one device.
So will the emergence of voice search, gesture, and touch change your search marketing strategies for either yourself or your clients? And how will it change it?
I think it certainly will, and it has already, I think. A lot of, and you think about sort of these different technologies and how people are searching these discovery searches, and with Google Goggles and some of these other programs as well. You really have to start thinking about, and this is something that marketers can do now, is thinking about how are you optimizing from a tagging and SEO perspective a lot of your pages. Because one of the big things that I see a lot is a lot of images or logos aren't actually tagged. And so when they're not actually tagged, if somebody is scanning that, you're missing out on opportunities right then and there. So I think that where we're starting is really relooking at how we're tagging all of our pages, all of our images, ensuring that we can accommodate a world where people aren't just searching for us in a keyword box.
I'd say that SEO, yes, will greatly and is already becoming very affected by this. particularly with devices like Siri. They don't, or she doesn't, expose you to the plethora of results that you get from a search results page. The idea there and the value add is that she is taking you exactly to the relevant information that you need, which is tricky, I guess, for SEM. We're not sure how that's going to play out yet. But for SEO, it's already starting to become more and more important if you want to be that one final result that the user goes to. Another trend that we're noticing and that I think is going to be interesting to look out for is how a lot of providers that use the voice command have some kind of over rewrite that auto completes the user's query, which is starting to make the long tail look very different on mobile devices than it does on desktop. We're already seeing that get less and less specific. That's creating some issues and some exciting opportunities to target shorter, different variations of keywords.
Yeah, and I also think we've talked a lot today about how our idea of what search marketing is and how much is expanded from traditional sort of PPC and SEO. And thinking about applications like Siri, you have to start thinking about your Yelp reviews. You have to start thinking about other sites outside of the Googles and the Bings and all the other true search engines, and how you're doing there and what your strategy is there, because a lot of what Siri does doesn't rely on traditional keyword search-based marketing. So it really sort of does expand sort of what we think our search marketing strategy is.
Okay. What would be your advice for somebody that's not targeting it? That hasn't targeted voice search or
The devices.
Yeah.
That would be, in terms of the devices, that would be a huge missed opportunity. The search engines make available to you different bidding strategies by device, and the performance is very different. The CPCs are very different, and from a targeting perspective, you just wouldn't be as fine-tuned if you didn't take advantage of that.
Yeah, and I also think that in thinking about demographics and who you may be hitting now and who you may be missing out on, at AARP, a lot of times people think, why are you wasting money on spending money on mobile and tablets and everything? But if you think about it, a lot of these applications are so much more intuitive. I was speaking with somebody over breakfast about how they saw like their nephew or somebody, a kid, working an iPad, and I said, that works the same way with older demographics as well. And we've seen our performance in tablets increase, 200%, month over month. So, it's really, I think, an interesting play as well. And I'll touch briefly on this as well as with multicultural audiences too. We know that adoption with smartphones and mobile is much higher in some of those populations, specifically Hispanic, Latino. So I think just from a perspective of who you're reaching and what you can do and some of those harder markets, that you may be targeting, I think there's really great opportunity in the mobile space.
From our side, all that we care about over at Google is data. And I'm pretty certain that you all as marketers care greatly about that as well. And if you're not segmenting by device, you are leaving tremendous opportunity on the table to get more granular with your reporting and get a better understanding of what works well across devices and what doesn't work well, and you can react to that. Additionally, the difference in devices allows us to be more innovative and creative and overall just cleverer with what we can do in an ad unit. We have mobile-specific ad formats like click-to-call, call-only format, download my app for tablet and mobile, directions, coupons. And if you're not taking advantage of all those different formats when and where they are applicable to your business, it's just missed opportunity.
Okay. Well, those are all the prepared questions I had. Is there any questions out in the audience for my panel here on search and the multi-screen experience? We don't have any.
I was wondering if anyone has done any I was just wondering if, especially when you were talking about metrics, if anyone has any data on the multi-device on B2B versus B2C. So a lot of things that you were talking about make sense like in a B2C space, but then I'm just wondering from B2B how people are potentially using a mobile device versus, obviously PC and tablet makes sense, but I don't know how much a mobile device, and just was wondering if anybody has done any studies on that. Google or
I know that we have a great deck that I can share if anyone is interested in. I don't know all of the stats off the top of my head, but it specifically surveyed and did a research panel on how business owners, C-level executives across companies are using their different devices, what they're using them for, how, what the landscape throughout the day, the search landscape throughout the day is, where they are at certain times. And they are actually more apt to use their mobile device than just a general consumer, because they are typically constantly on the go. They're in meetings, they're shuffling from room to room, and they are using that mobile device as their portable computer. And being relevant and accessible and just showing up there when they're searching for things is still important. We have different display targeting where you can actually target kind of B2B type categories. We also have behavioral targeting for different user profiles for certain jobs. There are a lot of interesting things that you can do, but I still think just bottom line, being there, being available and eligible to show up when that person is searching is important. If you're just leaving mobile out of the picture, well, you may not think that your target B2B consumer is there as often. They are there, and if you're not hitting them when they are there, they're going to see someone else, and that's probably your competition and probably not what you want.
What I find ironic, and this is just from my own personal experience, is that even among all the tech companies that we all deal with, how few mobilized versions of websites, of B2B sites. I mean, even in our industry and our trades are all, when you navigate, you're on a non-optimized site. So I don't know how that bodes for the rest of the business.
Hey there. So do you think we're giving, kind of to Susie's last point, are we giving the user too many options? If there's like a regular site on a mobile device, mobile optimized site, apps. So, I mean, that's kind of part of, all this tracking and so forth, ROI. So I don't know what your thoughts are of, giving all these different options to the searchers and the users.
So I actually didn't hear the first part of the question, sorry.
Oh, are we just giving too many options? So is it, we have a mobile optimized site, but sometimes they suck. Sometimes your regular site sucks on a mobile device, and then sometimes your app sucks. So what do we do to, I guess, best deliver the best experience?
Not build sucky sites, mobile sites or apps. No, I think it's a great question, and it's, test and learn. I think that we are so dependent upon, because we're such a data-driven industry, we're sort of, really spoiled with the information that we have to sort of really build the best anything that we want to do and the best marketing campaign. But there's something to be said about testing and learning, because your data is probably going to be more valuable to you than industry data or marketing data, and it's so important to have and own your own data as well.
Yeah, and I would recommend that the mobile site and the app need to be created with a specific purpose. It shouldn't be copying what somebody else did. You have to make it your own, and the ones that have been most successful serve a specific purpose. And that's why I don't necessarily advocate having a carbon copy of the desktop, the app, and the mobile website. I think each one of them needs to serve its own purpose, and the people that have been really successful have done that.
I'd say that no, it's not too many options. Consumers are really, really spoiled, and they want what they want when they want it. And if they want to buy from you on their mobile device and you don't offer that, that's a bad thing to have happen. If they want to download your app and they're looking for it and they don't see it, again, that's another missed opportunity. I'd say Candace touched on this earlier with the importance of consistency across your marketing messages. I think it's also very, very important to give consumers those options, but make sure you're consistent. If they're looking at one thing on their mobile device that definitely doesn't jive with what they're seeing on desktop, they get confused, they may get frustrated, and they may go somewhere else. So just, I do agree that it's important that they have their own unique purpose, but they also have to have that commonality and that consistency across all of your messaging in order just to keep the user experience seamless and happy.
Do we have any other questions? Okay, we
Yep,
got
one
one.
right here. And do us a favor, just over the course of the next few days, just when you have a question, please state your name and your company, and that would be very helpful to us. Thanks.
My name's Stephen Scar, and I work for info.com. When you advertise on mobile and tablet, do you upload the same keywords as desktop? And do you find that you're getting clicks from different segments of those from that upload, and how are you able to identify the variation of different traffic you're getting?
We without a doubt, the keyword lists are unique to each segment, and they actually perform quite differently. We have keywords that, if the tablet and the desktop experience are more similar, but then the CPCs are different. So if you're using an automated bid management system, it's going to weed out whichever one isn't performing. So that's when I made the point about it being a really big advantage in order to target on those 3 devices, because it gives you the opportunity to fine-tune each of those campaigns.
Paige, earlier, over here. Hello. Hi there. Earlier you talked about how Google's built on data, and I couldn't help but think, and I guess I tweeted as well, about everybody who hasn't had their back to that wall knows where this is going. Yeah, I couldn't help but think about, as you talked about SEO and data, how Google earlier this year, late last year, decided under privacy concerns to restrain and no longer pass through logged in referral data. And now you have a new privacy policy as of March, which brings all of your platforms together. I know you're built on data. I think a lot of brands out here would like to be built on data as well. How do they reconcile the fact Google seems to be picking and choosing more recently what data they will share with advertisers, but what they keep for themselves?
That's a fantastic question, and a tricky one for me to answer. I think it's, ideally in the utopia of search marketing, we would be able to share everything that we have with marketers. That would make my job a lot easier. I could certainly sell more things and get people to spend more money. But it's walking this tightrope with kind of all of the different other players in the space, particularly the policy, the government, what we're dealing with there as being appropriate and safe to share with our marketers, and where to draw the line for user safety and security. I don't know what the answer is. I don't even know. I'm sure I should know this, and I know there are a few other Google folks in the room. I don't know what kind of the point of view that I'm supposed to take on this particular question is. But I would like to see it be more widely shareable and accessible. And I think as a whole, the industry is moving that way. I think that consumers are starting to see that if they do have certain information available about them, certain data that marketers can tap into, they're getting ads and they're getting resources and substance that is more relevant to them. It's more applicable. They might want to use it more. The deals that they're receiving are deals that they're actually going to go in and to a store or order online and redeem. And the less that they do that, probably the more noise that they're getting along with the more relevant ads. Some users want to keep it that way, and I don't blame them. My parents are both two of those people. No matter how hard I try to tell them that my job is really valuable and they should not delete all of their cookies every day. But I guess from the Google side, we're just kind of waiting until the rest of the industry kind of pulls the lever that make it safe for us to share that. And until then, we don't want to get sued.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Paige, Susie, and Candace. Thank you very much.